watching All 24 News World News program, broadcasting to you live from the capital Algiers. And up next are tonight's top stories. Martyrs and wounded in new Zionist massacre in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah vows an appropriate response to the occupation amid widespread condemnation of the violations in the region. Also on our news tonight, Trump eyes U.S. control over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran rejects the move and shipping hits record low amid continued attacks. Coming up as well, Polisario rejects Morocco's Western Sahara recognition claims, accuses Rabat of imposing a fait accompli, and activists denounce abuses against Sahrawis. Later on, 14 civilians killed in RSF attack in North Kordofan. Al Burhan launches that national dialogue and government open to initiatives excluding the RSF from power. These stories and more shortly. Welcome back to the details. First off, in our news, at least 11 Lebanese people have been killed and 19 others wounded in two new Zionist airstrikes in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 7 members of the same family, including 3 children and 2 women, were killed in an airstrike on a home in Ansar. Another airstrike or strike on Deir es-Zahrani killed 4 people and injured 17 others. The strikes came as the occupation intensified attacks across southern Lebanon, including airstrikes and the destruction of homes, with reports of internationally banned white phosphorus being used. In response, Hezbollah has warned that the occupation's attacks on the southern city of Nabatea will not go unanswered. In a statement on Saturday, the group said the barbaric attacks would be met with an appropriate response, rejecting what it called Israel's attempt to impose a new reality on the ground. Hezbollah also urged Lebanese authorities to stop the attacks and end to what it described as humiliating negotiations with Israel, saying Lebanon's sovereignty cannot depend on U.S. mediation guarantees. For his part, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned the occupation's ongoing attacks in southern Lebanon, particularly around Nabatea. Aoun denounced what he called repeated Israeli violations of the Framework Agreement, the Military Coordination Committee's work, and international laws protecting civilians. He said the violations also send a clear message about the direction of the ongoing negotiations.
President Joseph Aoun condemned the ongoing Israeli attacks on southern Lebanon, particularly in the Nabatea region and its surroundings, and its repeated violations of the Framework Agreement, the work of the Joint Military Coordination Group, and international laws protecting civilians, which resulted in the martyrdom of an entire family from the town of Ansar.
Meanwhile, Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has condemned the latest occupation escalation in southern Lebanon, calling the strikes and intimidation of civilians extremely dangerous and a threat to stability. He said the targets cited were not military facilities and that the women and children killed were not military targets. Salam stressed that only the Lebanese state is responsible for dealing with any military infrastructure on its territory.
The Israeli escalation witnessed since dawn today in the city of Nabatea, the town of Ansar, Deir Zahrani and neighboring villages, accompanied by airstrikes, heavy shelling, and the intimidation of residents in their homes, is extremely dangerous and undermines effort to establish stability in the south. Israel must halt this escalation.
Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri has condemned the 2 Zionist massacres in southern Lebanon, calling them part of what he described as an ongoing war against people and property. Berri said Israel is violating agreements and efforts to end the conflict and called for national unity and greater efforts to stop the war before it's too late. Turning to the wider Middle East, U.S. President Donald Trump moved from threats of military control to suggesting the strategic waterway could become U.S. territory. Iran has rejected the idea, insisting the Strait remains under its sovereignty. More with Salman Asib now.
The Strait of Hormuz is at the center of a new escalation, with President Donald Trump threatening to declare the strategic waterway U.S. territory, while Iran firmly rejects the move and insists on its sovereignty. As tensions rise, shipping through the vital energy route has fallen sharply, raising fears of major disruptions to global energy markets. Speaking Friday to supporters, police and intelligence officials in New York, Trump vowed to hit Iran economy hard and promised lower prices for Americans after what he called a decisive defeat of Iran.
And after we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated, pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. Essentially, that's what it is. We have the blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to.
Iran is pushing back strongly against Donald Trump's threat to declare the Strait of Hormuz U.S. territory, insisting the strategic waterway remains firmly under Iranian sovereignty. Deputy Foreign Minister Qasem Gharibabadi said the strait can only be opened or closed by Tehran, stressing that neither a tweet, an aircraft carrier, nor political speech can change its status.
The Strait of Hormuz cannot be seized by a tweet, an aircraft carrier, an executive order, or an election speech. Iran does not fear threats or displays of force. The Strait of Hormuz has always belonged to Iran and will remain so. Only Iran can open or close it. We will continue our blockade of the strait as long as the United States refuses to accept the reality of its defeat or abandon its delusions.
With tensions over the Strait of Hormuz escalating, Iran is rejecting Washington's claims while reaffirming its control over the strategic waterway. As shipping remains disrupted and fears grow over the impact of global energy markets, Tehran says it has yet to decide whether to resume negotiations with the United States, leaving the crisis with no clear diplomatic path forward.
Amid the rising tensions, a UAE-flagged cargo ship was hit by an unidentified projectile while passing through the Strait of Hormuz overnight, according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations Agency. The impact damaged the vessel's hull, but all crew members are safe. The extent of the damage and any environmental impact remain unclear. Abu Dhabi National Oil Company confirmed that one of its bulk carriers was also attacked while transiting the strategic waterway. Shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has fallen to unprecedented levels after two vessels were attacked while crossing the strategic waterway. Data from Kepler shows only a handful of ships passed through on Friday, with no crude oil tankers recorded. That is well below the August average of around 12 vessels a day and a sharp drop from more than 130 daily crossings before the war. Elsewhere in the region, an oil spill has affected around 12 kilometers of Oman's coastline near Ras Madraka after reaching the shore on Wednesday. Oman's Environment Authority says monitoring and response operations are underway, while the oil slick is moving southeast toward open waters near Masira Island. The spill is believed to be linked to a tanker that was damaged in the Strait of Hormuz weeks ago. The disruption is also raising concerns for oil exporters. Iraq is negotiating with the United States and Iran to secure a safe passage for its oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil Minister Bassem Mohammed Hudayr said Baghdad is working to keep crude exports flowing, with exports averaging around 2 million barrels per day since the beginning of August.
We are holding talks with the United States and Iran to secure a corridor of Iraq's oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz. We are continuing our efforts to ensure the smooth flow of crude exports and secure their route under the current circumstances. Since the beginning of August, Iraq's crude oil exports have averaged around 2 million barrels per day, the highest export rate since the start of the war. We continue working to ensure that oil exports flow regularly and without disruption.
The economic impact is already being felt in Iran, where authorities have blamed the United States for rising inflation and prices, citing the impact of U.S. sanctions and restrictions on oil exports. President Masoud Pezeshkian said shipping restrictions have forced vessels to take longer routes, driving up the cost of imported goods. He also pointed to falling state revenues due to the oil export ban.
As for people's livelihood and rising prices, this is a natural consequence. In the past, goods were transported directly by ship, but now vessels have to take the full route before reaching us, driving up the final cost of products. Our oil revenues have also fallen, as we are no longer able to sell our oil as we did before. Several factories have been destroyed, making it difficult to collect taxes from them as we used to. Ultimately, the economy must keep moving.
In a different story, 3 government soldiers were killed and 7 others wounded in clashes with the Houthi forces in Yemen's Taiz province. Government forces said they repelled a multi-front attack involving artillery fire and infiltration attempts, inflicting dozens of casualties. Separately, the port of Muka suspended commercial operations after more than 25 Houthi missile attacks, which reportedly killed 7 people and caused around $16 million in damage. From Yemen, we turn to Gaza now, where the health ministry is warning of an imminent humanitarian and health disasters. Oxygen supplies and stations across the Strip reach critical levels. The ministry says 22 of Gaza's 34 oxygen stations have stopped working, while the remaining 12 are operating beyond capacity and could fail at any moment. It warns that the shortage could cut off a vital lifeline to critically ill patients in hospitals and homes amid the ongoing blockade. Still in Gaza, finding enough food and clean drinking water in the overcrowded displacement camps has become a daily struggle. With fewer charity kitchens and limited aid reaching families, many displaced Palestinians are left wondering how they will feed their families each day. The story with Karim Mustafawi this time.
As across much of Gaza, misery has become a daily reality in this vast, overcrowded tent camp in Deir el-Balah, as finding enough food has become a relentless struggle for many displaced Palestinians. With fewer charity kitchens and limited humanitarian aid reaching families, the same desperate question hangs over the camp each day. How will we feed our families today?
We are suffering from everything, from fire, food, water to charity kitchens. When we want to drink, we walk a kilometer to get some water. Today is Friday. We are cooking eggplants. Our situation is difficult.
Life has become very difficult. We are sick of living in tents. You, your wife, and your children, together with your son, his wife, and his children. 15 people live in one tent. Today, there is nothing. No charity kitchens or aid. There is no aid.
Beyond the lack of food, displaced families are struggling to secure something ever more basic: drinking water, a stark sign of a humanitarian crisis that continues to deprive families of the most fundamental necessities and rights.
We are done with this suffering. I do not have a water tank of 250 liters to preserve water. I have only a small amount for 7 people.
What displaced Palestinians are enduring in this camp in Deir el-Balah is only a glimpse of the daily reality across the besieged, devastated Gaza Strip. For those living through it, the question remains: how much longer can this go on?
And the situation remains tense in the occupied West Bank as well. Dozens of Palestinians have been wounded and others detained as Zionist occupation forces carried out fresh raids across the occupied West Bank. Palestinian officials said several people, including children, suffered from tear gas inhalation, while others were wounded by live fire. Meanwhile, the UN says more than 900 military checkpoints are restricting humanitarian operations and preventing tens of thousands of Palestinians from accessing essential food, medicine, and medical supplies. Turning now to North Africa, the 14th Summer University for Sahrawi officials is continuing in Boumerdès, Algeria, where participants reaffirmed the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence. Polisario Front representative Mohamed Sidi Ammar called recent recognition of Morocco's sovereignty claims over Western Sahara illusory, saying they reflect a failure to impose a fait accompli.
كلها إعلانات سياسية وهمية وليس لها أي سند قانوني. They're all nothing, just fake political announcement with no legal basis. What lies behind them is the policy of bribery and corruption pursued by Moroccan diplomacy, as we know. As I said, and I stress again, the actions of the Moroccan regime in recent days, its attempts to distort the Sahrawi cause and buy support, are clear evidence of its failure. This is what has driven it into the arms of the Zionist occupation and other forces of evil around the world.
In the same context, Polisario Representative Mohamed Sidi Ammar accused Morocco of pursuing what he called a colonial policy to maintain its occupation of parts of Western Sahara. He said Rabat lacks the political will to reach a final settlement, rejecting solutions that uphold the Sahrawi people's rights.
As for the latest developments regarding the national cause of the United Nations, as you know, following the adoption by the Security Council of its latest resolution in October last year, Resolution 2797, informal ministerial consultations were held between the parties to the conflict, the Polisario Front and the Kingdom of Morocco, with the participation of the two brotherly countries, Algeria and Mauritania. These consultations were merely the beginning of a process whose outcome cannot be yet assessed, given the obstacles that currently remain. The first, of course, is the position of the Moroccan occupying state, which refuses to make progress along the peaceful path and towards what United Nations resolutions call for, enabling the Sahrawi people to exercise their inalienable right to self-determination and independence. The Moroccan occupying state continues to bet on consolidating its illegal occupation of parts of the Sahrawi Republic.
Participants at the 14th Summer University in Boumerdès, Algeria also highlighted the event as a platform to expose what they described as Moroccan violations in the occupied territories. They also drew attention to the hardships facing Sahrawis, including repression and deteriorating social and economic conditions, as well as the situation of Sahrawi detainees and their families. Elsewhere in North Africa, 11 migrant bodies have been found off the Libyan coast, according to two international rescue organizations. SOS Méditerranée and the Humanitarian Pilots Initiative said surveillance aircraft spotted the bodies floating in the sea on Friday. The Italian Coast Guard said it notified Libyan authorities after receiving the alert, as the bodies were found about 57 nautical miles from Zawara. On the continental level, Algeria's ambassador and chair of the African Union Peace and Security Council, Khalid Mohammed, has called for stronger coordination and fewer overlapping initiatives across Africa. He urged a shift from political commitments to practical actions, stressing the need to strengthen the AU's capacity to prevent and respond to crises and build a more stable, democratic, and prosperous continent. In other topical development, more than 14 civilians were killed and dozens wounded in an RSF attack on the Rada area, southwest of Al Obeid in North Kordofan. The emergency lawyers group said the attack triggered a new wave of civilian displacement as humanitarian conditions continue to deteriorate. Still in Sudan, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has announced the launch of a national dialogue promising political, legal, and security guarantees for participants. Al-Burhan said participants would receive temporary immunity from prosecution over views expressed during the talks, while the state would provide logistical support without interfering in the dialogue or its outcomes.
If these guarantees are accepted, the state is ready to provide logistical support as well as legal, political, and security guarantees without being the body that organizes the dialogue or determines its agenda or outcomes. This is in respect of its independence and in order to preserve its national credibility. Any dialogue concerning domestic affairs must include political, legal, and security guarantees. These guarantees do not mean that the state owns the dialogue, chooses its participants, sets its agenda, controls its outcomes, or assume political sponsorship of the process.
Al-Burhan also said Sudan would not accept what he called an incomplete peace deal that could return the RSF to power. He stressed that the process must begin with disarming the group before addressing the status of fighters who have not committed crimes. Let's take a listen again.
It is important to clarify that any measures taken by the state or participants in the dialogue does not constitute an amnesty. Rather, it involves suspending criminal proceedings that had previously been initiated against them. Legally speaking, there can be no question of amnesty, as amnesty in the strict legal sense requires a conviction to have been issued first. Therefore, the withdrawal of charges should not be portrayed as an exemption from responsibility for wrongdoing is established against the individuals concerned.
And now here's a quick look at other major stories in our news in brief with Zara Farjani.
The World Health Organization says the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is spreading rapidly, becoming the country's largest and fastest spreading outbreak on record. The outbreak has reached 54 health zones across 6 provinces, with 4,665 confirmed cases and 2,184 deaths. The WHO warns that insecurity, displacement, and cross-border movements are hampering the response. France's annual inflation rate rose to 2.1% in July, while inflation under the EU's harmonized index stood at 2.4%. Final figures from National Statistics Agency INSEE show prices rose 0.6% from the previous month, driven mainly by a 12.6% jump in energy costs. Services rose 2.2%, while food prices increased by 1%. Russia says its forces have captured the town of Rybalskoye in Ukraine's Zaporizhia region and destroyed hundreds of Ukrainian drones and missiles over the past 24 hours. Kiev, for its part, reported one person killed in Russian shelling in Dnipropetrovsk and said it had shot down 127 Russian drones. The death toll from Saturday's earthquake in eastern Indonesia has risen to 38. Authorities say 2 people were seriously injured and 11 others sustained minor injuries. Around 2,000 residents have also evacuated the affected area. Algeria's women's national team secured bronze and finished 3rd at the 2026 African Cup of Nations after beating host Morocco on penalties following a 1-1 draw. Goalkeeper Chloe Negazi was the hero, saving 2 penalties to help Algeria seal a historic achievement in women's football.
And that wraps up our news program. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.